Hello folks, Scott here with the My Monthly Hero May 2020 kit. I just got this kit on Monday, June 15th. So Hero Arts is back in business. They are slowly bringing back their people to their offices and warehouse outside of San Francisco. Let's see what May brought for us this time. Okay, yes, this is all about sending mail to our family and friends since we can't see them. This is our 6x8 stamp set. We've got a nice cloud and rainbow, lightning bolt, a sun, a flower, another rainbow, another sun. This is an address banner, 3 lines for address. This is plain, a little snail mail, lots of sentiments here. Very interesting stamp set. Looks like we got lots of rainbows this month. Of course, we also get dies with that. So I went ahead and just die cut all of those dies in our kit just to see what they went with. And yes, we've got the snail, we've got the plane, the banner, the flower, the rainbow, and the sun. And then we have 8 of these little art icon fancy dies. And then we get some extras this month, Heron Deco brush markers. So we've got metallic permanent markers, metallic blue, we have metallic gold, and we have metallic pink. Heron metallic brush markers. And then we also get some envelopes, 5 A2 envelopes, 5 A7 envelopes. I believe these will fit 5x7 cards. And warning, I hope this will make you smile. And here we have my 10 cards using the My Monthly Hero May 2020 card kit. We've got some nice colorful card bases here. I was a little concerned originally that I'd be able to come up with 10 different cards using this stamp set, but I persevered and diligence did pay off. I did think I would tackle that big open sun first thing. So I started thinking about the path the sun takes across the sky during the course of a day. So our first card on a yellow card base, we've got You Make Today Better. That's my interpretation of the sun passing through the sky over the course of a day. I stamped those suns and that sentiment on a piece of Nina 80-pound cardstock using VersaFine Onyx black ink. I colored all the suns and the sentiment using my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers, a little bit different on each pair of suns. I then took my homemade little sunburst stencil and layered that over the sentiment and used my blending brushes to blend that little sunburst in there. I thought we needed something else other than just the suns. I used, this is Broken China Distress Oxide ink. I used my little blending brushes and was very careful not to blend over the top of any of those suns or the sentiment. I was looking for a little something extra also, so I ended up stamping that little heart stamp from our stamp set. I stamped that in the middle of the center sun there, and then I took my Emboss It pen and colored in that heart and then embossed that with some Love from Lizzie Lemon Zest Party embossing powder. Now there's some good sparkle on that sun, just what we needed. I did take my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen and added a little bit of sparkle on the tops of all of those suns. I cut that panel down to size, put a thin black mat on that, glued that down to my yellow card base. This is a bright, cheerful card. I really like the 2-color scheme on this. You Make Today Better, bright and sunshiny. Let's go ahead and make an envelope for that. So this is my envelope for this card. I stamped the Please Deliver To and the triple banner stamp on the front using VersaFine Onyx black ink. I did stamp the Look Inside for Happiness on the back flap. I then took that stencil again and using Broken China Distress Oxide ink, I inked that stencil in the top left corner over here, fading it out as it got to the edges. This is the small airplane die from our kit. Now, I actually die cut that from a piece of red paper, just plain 20-pound paper. I was a little worried about putting cardstock on top of an envelope. I'm not much of an envelope decorator. Heaven knows I am not a fabulous calligrapher like Christina Warner. And I tell you personally, I'm thrilled if someone wants to keep the card, much less keep the envelope when I give them something. And of course, I'm always concerned about how an envelope will travel through the United States Postal Service. I certainly see the usefulness of these kind of stamps. I don't think I have any envelope stamps like this in my stash, so these will definitely get some use. This is my first decorated envelope to go along with this card. Please deliver to. Those are pretty small labels there to put an address in. I'll have to send this to somebody who has a short address or lives in a short town. Okay, sidebar. In the never-ending annals of Scott has too much time on his hands, I was watching a number of Sandy Allnock videos, and she has a Copic airbrush system, and I thought that I had an airbrush from years and years and years ago. I actually spent a summer airbrushing t-shirts across the Midwest of Canada. I did this with my brother, who worked for a carnival at the time. I airbrushed t-shirts and thought I still had an airbrushing compressor in my storage, so I dug around, and lo and behold, I did find my old airbrush. This thing has got to be, goodness, 30 years old or something. Airbrush still works. I dug this out. I started playing with it. I actually recently purchased a set of Distress Oxide sprays. I've never really played a lot with these spray colors, but I thought they'd be interesting to play with, and I thought they might go through that airbrush really nicely. So I played around, I fiddled, I experimented, and this second card is what we came up with. There's always a rainbow at the end of every rain, with this really nice airbrushed background using that Distress Oxide spray. This is the Mermaid Lagoon Distress Oxide spray. Went through my airbrush really nicely. I was very pleased with that. A really nice soft gradient. So I stamped the rainbow and clouds on a piece of Neenah 80-pound cardstock, and then I cut a mask for that, and then stamped the sun, and then cut a mask for the sun and put that in that space, then used my airbrush to do this nice blue background on that whole piece. I peeled off the masks. That left this perfect white openings, and I colored all of this with my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. I die cut that panel with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, added a thin white mat, glued that down to a plain blue card base, stamped this sentiment with Versamark ink, embossed that with some white embossing powder. I have a little problem with this sentiment. There's rarely always anything, and there's not always a rainbow at the end of every rain. What if it rains at night? But you know me, that's beside the point. A really nice sentiment, a really, really pretty card. I don't know what I think about using that airbrush, but I love this card. I really liked adding that sun to that rainbow and cloud stamp. I thought that filled that out nicely. I did make an envelope for that card as well. Here's the envelope for that. I stamped that same rainbow stamp, masking off the bottom of those clouds. I stamped the kindly deliver to inside there. I colored this rainbow using my Prismacolor colored pencils. I did stamp the Happy Mail on the back of this using Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink. This is nice. I think that's quite appropriate and goes very well with this card. Now, I do think the best stamp in this stamp set is that little biplane stamp. So for our third card on a white card base, we've got Sending you love. With that great plane trailing a whole bunch of hearts behind it. Now, I stamped this plane on some Bristol smooth cardstock using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I colored that with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I die cut that out using the matching die in the set. Now, I wanted to make sure that these hearts matched that plane, so I just colored a swatch with that same Zig Clean Color marker and then die cut all of the hearts out of that. Now for these die cuts, I used the smallest heart in the Nesting Hearts Infinity dies from Hero Arts, and then I also used the double heart die from the May 19 kit, last year's kit in May. There's a double heart that cuts these two hearts out. I took a piece of 80-pound Nina cardstock and ink blended some clouds on that using Broken China Distress Oxide ink and My Favorite Things Cloud Edges stencil. I die cut that little cloud die 9 times from some cardstock. Now these top pieces here have just the tiniest bit of overspray on them from my experiments with my airbrush. So I put those on top, glued 3 together, 3 together, 3 together, and made chunky little clouds for this card. I stamped Sending You Love using VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I embossed that with some clear embossing powder for a little shine there. I die cut this piece out with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, matted it on a thin black mat, added that to a white card base. I glued my 3 chunky clouds straight down on the card base, and then I attached that plane and all of those hearts using little pieces of foam tape. Sending You Love. I really like this card. You can't go wrong with red, yellow, and blue at any time. I did make an envelope for this one. This is the envelope for this card. Again, we have another plane dragging a banner there. Now, this plane is from the July of 18 Carnival card kit. There's that little plane there and the banner that says hello there. I stamped those on the front of the card using VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and then Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink for the hello there, for the to, and for the from on the back. Those are all stamps from our stamp set. I used that My Favorite Thing Cloud Edges stencil. Nice, fairly simple, but definitely a hint of what's to come on the inside of the card. Sending you love. Now, all of our rainbows were a little abbreviated in this stamp set. There's only 4 stripes on this rainbow. There's only 4 stripes on this rainbow. I thought about adding another line in here to give us 6 stripes, but I actually liked the gap in the rainbow more than I liked extra stripes. So I figured if I can't give you a rainbow with 6 stripes, maybe I can give you 6 rainbows in different colors. This is actually on a piece of Gina K Design Sea Glass cardstock, and we have Be a Rainbow in Someone Else's Cloud. That's a quote from Dr. Maya Angelou. That is probably my favorite rainbow quote of all time. And here, of course, we have that skinny rainbow stamp just stamped right next to each other across this card front. I fiddled with that stamp for a little bit to see how close I could get them together, see what colors I could use on them. I did just create a simple mask for the cloud on the right side of that stamp. And then as I stamped it, I didn't ink up those 2 little sparkles on the right side of that stamp. So that's what gave me this nice continuous row of rainbows. Those are all stamped on Nina 80-pound cardstock. Those are colored with my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. I printed this sentiment using my Silhouette software and the Smoothie Shop font. There'll be links to all these fonts on my website. Be a Rainbow in Someone Else's Cloud. I used that metallic blue Corinne marker to color these 5 sparkles between the rainbows. I actually stamped that big sparkle using the gold metallic marker, and then stamped these two little X sparkles using the pink markers. You can use those markers on top of the stamp. They came out really pretty nicely. To finish off this card, I added a couple of strips of blue glitter cardstock that was just hanging out in my scrap paper stash. I cut this down to size, glued that to the sea glass card base. Be a rainbow in someone else's cloud. Love that sentiment. I did make an envelope for this one, and this is the envelope for that card. I think I'm getting better at my envelopes as I go along. I really like this envelope. I did, of course, just stamped that rainbow 3 times on the left. I colored these again using my colored pencils. I die cut 7 little clouds from masking paper and stuck them to the front of this envelope, and then ink blended some broken china distress oxide ink. Warning, this will make you smile. I think this would make anybody smile, and I like that envelope. I'm getting a little better at those envelopes, and I really like those different colored rainbows. Okay, now I grabbed another background that I airbrushed for this next card. This is in different colors. I was really pleased with this. This card is for all my Stampin' and Craftin' friends in the Southwest. On a white card base, we have You Send Me Soaring. This is another airbrushed background using Distress Oxide sprays. I airbrushed this with fossilized amber, spiced marmalade, and fired brick. I tell you, this could make me a convert to airbrushes. I really like that. Here's another background in those same colors that I did, and added a little heart stencil on top of that. Really nice, really smooth ink blending, and it's really quick, and it didn't use very much ink whatsoever. I will have to think about using that airbrush some more. Now, my little Monument Valley die cut at the bottom down here is actually a die from the April of 19 card kit. This is the Venice card kit that has that great Venice cityscape here, that if you turn it upside down, there is your Monument Valley background. I saw somebody posted a card using that die upside down like that, probably in the My Monthly Hero Kit Fanatics page on Facebook, and I had saved this from a card I made back in April of 19. It had been hanging out in my little die cut file for a while, so I grabbed that, glued that to the bottom of this airbrush panel. I stamped this sentiment, You Send Me Soaring. This is actually from an old Stampin' Up stamp set, Sky is the Limit. This is one of the only Stampin' Up stamp sets I own. You Send Me Soaring. I've used that sentiment a number of times. I then die cut that airbrushed panel and the black mat using Hero Arts Nesting Ovals Infinity dies, and glued those down to a white card base. I die cut the balloons from some pitch black Hero Arts cardstock and colored those with the Karin markers. That's the metallic blue, metallic gold, metallic pink. Added those into our card front with some foam tape behind them. You Send Me Soaring. This is for all my friends in the Southwest. You do send me soaring. And of course, this is 5, so I do have another envelope for this one. I like this envelope too. This is my simple envelope for this card. I really like this. This mountain range down here was actually mask that I had cut with that Carnival kit back in 2018. I had cut that mask to go around this Carnival background stamp, and I grabbed that. I used that to ink up the bottom of this envelope. I used some frayed burlap for the mountains. I used some squeezed lemonade for the sky. I then stamped that little balloon that was actually in that same stamp set, that little balloon right there. I stamped that on the front using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Colored that again with my colored pencils. Nothing on the flap of this card. I think these are a really good pair. I really think I got better and better with my envelopes as we went along. I love this card. I love that ombre background. I love the sentiment. I love those balloons. I love the Monument Valley backdrop. Now, I have to admit, I did contemplate 5 cards and 5 envelopes would be enough for this kit, but I had some more ideas and more things I wanted to try with some of the items in this kit. So let's keep moving ahead. My next card on a white card base is Life is Fragile, Handle with Care. That's the Handle with Care stamp that is in this stamp set. I paired that up with Life is Fragile that I printed on this using my Silhouette software, and that is with the American Typewriter font and the Dream State font. I'll have links to those fonts on my website. I stamped the Handle with Care stamp, the little heart, and the lightning bolts using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is just on a piece of Neenah 80-pound cardstock. I die cut that with a Hero Arts nested heart infinity die. Now this background is actually just ink blended. And I tell you, I don't see a lot of difference between these two. This is ink blended with blending brushes. This is airbrushed. I tell you, using an airbrush is kind of a hassle. You have to plug in the compressor, fill this, you have to keep everything clean, yada yada. This is ink blending with brushes. Now, I did cut a little smaller heart out of a piece of masking and glued that down to a piece of Neenah 80-pound cardstock. This is ink blended with pickled raspberry, candied apple, and then fired brick. I was able to use that mask to help me get a pretty good approximation of a heart in the shape of that background ombre. I thought it worked really very nicely. That's really some lovely smooth blending. I don't know. I guess it'll probably come down to whether I'm feeling industrious and want to clean a bunch of stuff, or if I just want to wipe off my glass craft mat. I then went in and embossed all these hearts using the Simon Says stamp Falling Hearts stencil. I embossed those in white on the front. I die cut that piece with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, matted that on a thin black mat, glued that down to my white card base. I colored all of the images here using my colored pencils. I did ink blend a little bit of fired brick ink around the edges of that heart, and then mounted that to my card front with some foam tape. Life is Fragile, Handle with Care. This certainly seems very topical these days. Life is fragile, and we all need to treat each other with care. I really like this card, and I love that ink blending. Now, some of the dies in this kit kind of threw me for a loop. I wasn't sure exactly how we were supposed to use them. This little snail die cuts out 3 pieces to make a snail. You could use the negative as a piece, but I didn't think it made sense to cut a negative die cut in an envelope. This plain airplane also has got 3 pieces to it, but there's no background to it. I was a little thrown, but I thought I had a really nice idea on how to use this snail die. So my next card is on a craft card base. Sorry I'm late. Happy birthday. Oh, I thought this was really cute. I was really pleased with this. Now, I did partial die cutting on that little snail die to make a little border of snail silhouettes at the top of this mat here. I cut a piece of Neenah 80-pound cardstock. This is 1 3/4 inches tall by 5.5 inches wide. I just trimmed a piece of Post-it tape down to give me a little edge of my ground here. I ink blended that using antique linen and again some broken china in the sky. I glued that down to my little snail border and then cut the bottom of that piece to give us a nice little mat. I printed this sentiment, again, using my Silhouette software, and this is, again, using the American typewriter font. I stamped my snail mail stamp on a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, colored that with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, mounted him to the card with some foam tape, and added a little dashed trail behind him using my Pigma Micron pens. Sorry I'm late. Happy birthday. A belated happy birthday card with kind of a reason for being late. I love that little snail out in the middle of nowhere, bringing birthday wishes just to you. And I think that border on the top of that is just tons of fun. I think it's obvious that it's a snail. Happy birthday! So I was bound to conquer that 3-piece paper airplane die. So for this next card, we're on a white card base again, and we've got You're Just Plain Awesome with this nice paper airplane pattern in the background. So I used that little 3-piece die to make a stencil. Look at that. I just die cut that airplane die on a piece of nice thick 140-pound cardstock. I really like that stencil. I think it reads paper airplanes. It certainly reads paper airplanes on this card. I was very pleased with that. I ink blended some Broken China Distress Oxide ink onto some Gina K Sea Glass cardstock using this stencil. Came out really nice. I was very pleased with that. I die cut that down with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, added that to a thin black mat, and then down to a white card base. I die cut that other paper airplane die 6 times, glued 3 of them together for each one of these. I added just a little touch of light gray shading in their little crease in the center and there. And then our little dashed trail lines on these guys are actually the rainbow pieces from this die. So those are the little rainbow pieces. I cut those out of some Hero Arts pitch black cardstock and then laid them out on this card front in little paths for my paper airplanes to follow. I did print this sentiment on this panel. You're Just Plain Awesome. This is the Britannic bold font. I printed that on the panel. I added my paper airplanes using some foam tape and then added a couple of Love from Lizzie blue denim mirror peel-offs to the top and bottom there. There was this one little line through that stencil that was just a perfect place for an embellishment. So for a little extra sparkle and jazz, I used those blue denim mirror peel-offs from Love from Lizzie. You are plain awesome. A nice stencil and a bit of a pun for you guys this month. You are plain awesome. I really like this card. I think it's very playful with those paper airplanes and that paper airplane background. And it was a great use for those rainbow pieces from that other rainbow art icon fancy die. You're just plain awesome. Now, my only other question with these dies was that hello die that was a negative die cut, and I was surprised that it didn't work with this banner die that was created to cut this banner out. But if you look closely, you'll see that the curve of both of those banners is the same. So I thought with some careful alignment and some partial die cutting, I might be able to make those 2 dies work together. So for my next card, on a white card base, we have Hello, miss you, with that great little plane, this time in purple and orange. So this is our purple, orange, and green card to contrast our red, yellow, and blue card. I really like this. I did manage to get those 2 dies to work together. I just partial die cut the outline die, so I didn't cut off the end of the hello and then ended just fussy cutting the rest rest of that around the fishtail on the right side of that hello banner, but it worked perfectly on the left side, matched up very nicely. Very pleased with how that came out. I die cut that out of some dark green and then put it on some orange cardstock, trimmed that orange cardstock out around the edges of that die. I thought that came out really nice. I even added a little glitter to the hello there. Now, on a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, I stamped the plane, colored it with my Zig Cling color markers. I ink blended some clouds, again from My Favorite Things mini cloud stencil, and then I used the My Favorite Things cloud edges die to cut these two clouds. I trimmed those down to size. I stamped the Miss You sentiment. This is from the Hero Arts Many Everyday Messages stamp set. I've used this Miss You sentiment quite a lot. It seems like I can't get through a card kit these days without creating a Miss You card, but I guess that's a testament to my state of mind these days. I cut my painted background to size. That's 4 1/8 of an inch by 5 3/8 of an inch. Glued that down to a piece of that same sea glass cardstock, then glued that down to a white card base. I then added my die cut clouds. I glued them down on their edges and added some foam tape around their stitched sides to give them a little dimension there. I really like the double layer of clouds there, just the plain white cloud and then the ink blended cloud behind that. I really like that plain. And that die will work. I ultimately added this banner with some foam tape, a little dimension there, a little sparkle. I did emboss that sentiment with some clear embossing powder. Miss you. I'm missing lots of people these days. Okay, the only thing I haven't used here yet are these two flowers and that smiling sun. So for my last card, this is on an orange card base, and we've got "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." I broke out my Wreath Builder template and stamped all of these flowers in a circle using that Gina K Wreath Builder template. I stamped the sun in the center. I then added some leaves to this as well. There were no leaf stamps in this kit, but there was a leaf stamp in that Venice kit from April of last year. This nice little leaf right down here. I thought the little curly Q on that leaf echoed the curly Qs on the cheeks of that sun pretty nicely. So I added a bunch of leaves in there to give us a little greenery. I stamped all of this on some Nina 80-pound cardstock, colored everything with my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. I did send that panel through my printer and printed up this sentiment. This is using the typewriter hand font and the Dream State font. I thought that was a great sentiment and certainly perfect for a card like this. I then, of course, added some great sparkle and shine using some colorful confetti sequins and some moonshine confetti sequins. Those are from old Simon Says stamp kits. A nice bit of sparkle, a nice flowered wreath, a nice sentiment. You are my sunshine. Heaven knows we've got plenty of sunshine here lately. We're up in the high 80s and 90s already here in New York City. So we did it. I actually got 10 cards out of this kit and 5 envelopes. I do think my envelope skills improved as we went through this kit. I really like this one. I really like this one. I will certainly use those envelope flap stamps. Now, believe it or not, I did manage to use every single stamp in this stamp set. You know, I am so pleased when I'm able to do that. I did use all of the envelope art icon fancy dies, but I didn't use this rainbow die. I didn't use the sun die. I didn't use the flower die. So I didn't use some of our frame dies, and I didn't use those 5x7 envelopes. I'm really pleased with this bright, colorful assortment of cards. I really am pleased with this stencil. I'm pleased with this little border. It's gave me a chance to play with my airbrush a little bit, and I don't know if I've decided decided whether the airbrush is better or just the same as plain old ink blending. Ink blending probably wins at the end, but I will probably play with my airbrush some more. We just started phase 2 of reopening this week in New York City. We're taking it very slowly. I certainly understand why there are so many other spikes of cases going on across the country in places that relaxed their restrictions a little early, it seems. And of course, the numbers are just keep going up across the country, keep going up, more hospitalizations. I worry that some states are going to reach their hospital capacity before too long. Please, please, please take care of yourself. Please stay in if you can. Please wear a mask when you go out in public. Please avoid crowds in enclosed spaces. Please, please take care of yourself. We are not out of the woods yet. I am actually getting furloughed after the 4th of July. My nonprofit theater company here in New York has run through their PPP loan and will be furloughing us after the 4th of July, so I will be hoping to go on unemployment. I have no idea how long that's going to last. I know that Broadway's not really planning on even thinking about coming back till next year, so I may be on unemployment for the next 6 months. Oh my Lord, and stuck at home for the next 6 months. But please, please, ladies and gentlemen, please, folks, please keep yourself, keep your family, keep your friends safe and close. Please be careful out there. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. I hope I gave you a smile. I hope I gave you a giggle. I hope I lifted your spirits just a little bit. Heaven knows this card kit certainly lifted mine. I wish all of the folks at Hero Arts the best. I know they're working their hardest to get all of our kits out to us as soon as they possibly can. They're functioning with a reduced staff and trying to come back to work and keep everybody safe at the same time. It's not easy. This kit is actually still available, folks. So if you don't have any envelope stamps and you like the idea of putting a little extra sentiment on the outside of your card, please grab this card kit. It is still available at Hero Arts. Please use my links in the description down below if you do go shopping with Hero Arts. I appreciate it so very much. Please remember to like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. Don't touch your face, not yet, please. And as always, I wish you all health and happy crafting. If you'd like more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.